Hi, thank you for joining us for another Sporting Communities mental health podcast. Sporting Communities are a community interest company. We are an ethical, non-for-profit organisation which services range from sports coaching, youth work, mentors and family support. We are a training academy delivering a range of qualifications, and we also have art and play services. Today, we're going to be focusing on the second lockdown, Lockdown 2.0. We're going to be talking about how we're all finding things, the differences that there are in this lockdown compared to the previous one, and basically how we're feeling about potentially coming out of that on the 2nd of December if the government's plan was to go ahead. So, quick introductions from us all. I know you've heard from me before. I'm James. I've been with Sporting Communities now for about 2 years. Mainly going out into community, doing a bit of community work with the kids, putting on sporting sessions and basically trying to put smiles on people's faces. So we're joined by a couple of new people today. So if you'd all like to quickly do a quick introduction of yourself so that everybody knows who's on.
My name's Mim. I've been with the organisation for just shy of 2 years now. And my role is a youth engagement worker. So I go out into the community and engage with young people and families. I've also been involved with the mentoring programme. So that's me.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mim. And coming to you, Martine.
Hi, I'm Martine. I joined Sporting Communities in the last lockdown. I'm a running coach and a mental health first aider.
Fantastic. Thank you, Martine. And finally, last but not least, Denz.
Hi James, hi everybody. My name's Denzel. My role is a youth engagement worker. So my tasks involve going into the communities, communicating with all the youth, engaging with them, just seeing if they're all right, and also taking part in physical sporting activities. I also have been taking part in a online course throughout the past year, online partly because of the initial lockdown that was in place, and I've gained several communications since then. That's me in a nutshell. I also do some sports coaching on the side for a football team as a level 1 football coach.
Great stuff. Thank you, Denzel. Perfect. So that's all of us that are on today. The first topic that we're going to cover is lockdown that we're currently in, how we're all finding it. So I'll start. Some of you may know, but obviously I was living with my partner during the previous lockdown. I'm now not, as we split up in between. So I'm currently single, living by myself during the second one, which has been a little bit different. It is different being in a house by yourself, sort of not being able to go out and do your normal things and not having that person there with you has definitely been different for me. And it's definitely been an eye-opener for me for how people must have struggled during the first one. Obviously, we were locked down for the best part of 3 months. And I think people going through that by themselves, I think it was so important for people to be reaching out to people like that and having video chats and just sending them messages, seeing how they are. Because I have to say, I really appreciated that from sort of my friends and family during the second lockdown. So I know how important that must have been for the people who were by themselves the first time. Other than that, I think the second one, obviously it's not been quite as strong. I'm still going and doing my full-time job 3 days a week rather than 5. So I am still able to leave the house, whereas obviously last time we weren't able to at all. So for me, it doesn't feel quite as strict as what the first lockdown did. It still feels like there's quite a few cars on the road, whereas first time it felt pretty much like a ghost town out there, I'm not going to lie. But I've still been trying to keep up my running, so I'm going out running 3 or 4 times a week to try and keep myself healthy. I even ran to work a couple of days, although I realised that was a little bit far, so that plan got scrapped quite quickly. But yeah, other than that, I'm doing okay. Coming to you guys, how are you doing? How are you finding things?
Well, for myself, I think recently it's been a little bit sort of all over the place with the rules and places being shut again. But it has affected me slightly in terms of work. I had some good news when I became an employee after I was interviewed, and then didn't get me down too much, but obviously I was looking forward to continuing working and gaining more experience and got really involved with the youth that I've already met and relationships I've built up with the kids and also other employees that I've worked with. So far, in my spare time, I just try and, either read more, or write music and things like that, just to keep my mind occupied, really. Initially, in the first lockdown, it actually kind of brought me close to certain people in ways, because I spent more time talking over the phone, using video apps and seeing people that way. So that's kind of how I've been dealing with it, just picking up the phone more and working on myself personally, like my inner self and any crafts that I can get involved with in my spare time.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that sounds really good, to be fair, Denzel. And I think it's kind of the sort of model way that you would want to approach lockdown, and it's kind of looking for the positives that you can take out of it. So like you say, catching up with people who actually you might not have spoken to for a while,
Yeah.
sort of giving yourself a new hobby that you can look at doing and stuff like that. I think that's a really good way. And I think if we all kind of approach lockdown the way that you have, I think the world would be a very happy place. So no, I think that's really good.
Yeah, appreciate that. It can't have been too easy for yourself as well, after listening to your story, obviously, now being by yourself. But do you know what I mean? Obviously, hopefully, if anything, this makes us all stronger if you're by yourself or just not as close physically as people as you'd like to be, I
Yeah,
mean, one thing I've learned and taught, well, not taught myself, actually, I learned it from an artist that I listened to sort of trust the process, and even certain hurdles and obstacles that are thrown our way that can just put a stop in our journey. There'll still be something good that'll come out of it, and not all the bad stuff will last forever. So you just have to keep pushing and know that greater things will come,
that's it. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Always.
Definitely, I couldn't agree more with that. I think it's a really positive time for us to actually focus on, ourselves and the people that are close to us as well, without all the sort of hectic outside world that we often get sucked into, and putting more focus into how us and the people that we care about are actually feeling.
Yeah.
So I think that's something, even outside of lockdown, that I think everyone will sort of carry forward, and I think the world will be a lot better of a place for this. I think take something bitter and turn it into something sweet.
Yeah,
100%.
definitely. So
Yeah.
obviously we caught up a lot, Mim, during the first lockdown on these podcasts. How have you found the second one compared to the first one?
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal, is it, really? But I think we've got through this first one. Hopefully this is the last hurdle now, and I think everyone wants to be out by Christmas, don't they, and all of that sort of stuff. So we've got a bit of a hope, and I think what helped this time is that we've been given a date for it to be potentially lifted, whereas last time we didn't have a date. So it was sort of like, well, what's all this for? When are we gonna, what's going to happen? How long is it going to be for? But now that we've actually got a date, the 2nd of December, it's something to sort of work towards, and for us to have a little bit of like a focus. And obviously with Christmas approaching as well, I think that's something for everyone to look forward to. So spirits are a bit higher than they perhaps were in the first lockdown.
Yeah, I must admit, I know quite a few people have already put up their tree and stuff like that. So I think
I'm guilty of that.
clinging to that Christmas vibe. So yeah, there seems to be quite a few lights and stuff going up on my street already. So I think people are definitely clinging to that. How about you, Martine? How have you found the second lockdown compared to the first one?
Yeah, I think this time around, I think we've learned quite a lot from the first time. So I think this time around, it wasn't so worrying to go into another lockdown. I mean, it's been a bit different for me because last time all my family were at home, and this time, obviously, the children are still at school and my husband's still going to work. So it's not quite as locked down as it was the first time. But I think we've learnt from the first one how to deal with a lockdown, and so I think it has been a little bit easier for us all this time round. Although I did say to myself when I knew I was going to be in another lockdown, that I'd try and keep a routine and make sure that I keep my exercise up, so that I keep some kind of normality going, even though we're back in lockdown.
Yeah, I know routines is something that we spoke about a lot during first lockdown, and me, Mim and Ed were talking a lot about how to keep a routine and things to plan into your day and stuff like that. I do think it's so important. Have you managed to do that successfully, Martine, during this lockdown, or?
Yeah, I've had my moments, but yeah, I've made sure that I still keep exercising and I still keep planning out my day really, so that I am actually doing something productive, and it makes me feel a lot better then.
Yeah, I think we all have them days where we wake up and we just think, oh, not again today. And everybody has them. Every single person has them, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. And I think actually, if you can just get anything from that day and think, do you know what, I'm just going to do that today, and then at least I know I've achieved that, you'll feel so much better for it.
Yeah.
So no, fantastic. So yeah, I think lockdown 2.0, as they're calling it, it's definitely been, I think, like you say, it's been an easier transition this time because we knew what to expect. I think with regards to obviously the fact that schools are still open, obviously, like you said, Martine, it's not quite the same in the sense that a lot of families out there who were bunched up in houses actually aren't, because the kids are actually going out to school and a lot more people are being allowed to go to work than the first time. But I still think it's as important as it ever was that we're still reaching out to people. And just like Denzel said, that we're actually catching up with people over FaceTime, and we're calling people who might be the most vulnerable. And actually all of them key principles that we found from the first lockdown about being kind to each other and just helping each other out, I think they're as important now as they were back then. So I think as long as everyone keeps doing that, as you said, Mim, I think the world would be a better place. So I think it's really important that we just hold on to that.
Yeah, I think even more so this time around, because it's colder and it's darker, and we're not getting like the first time around. We were all at home, but it was nice. It was sunny. We could enjoy the garden if we couldn't get out. Whereas this time around, we're not able to.
If I remember rightly, we had a bit of a heat wave last time. Is that right?
Yeah.
And it was about 30 degrees every day. So I actually burned like a tomato straight away. So I was actually staying indoors rather than going out, because I would have burned straight away if I'd have gone out in that sun. So the cold actually suits me slightly better, but I know that's not the same for everyone. Great stuff. So just moving on from that then, I know we touched on coming out of lockdown on the 2nd of December, which is a date that I think everybody is looking forward to. I just wanted to get a few opinions, really. Number one, do we think that that is plausible? Do we think that that's going to happen? And number two, do we think it's going to be safe to open everywhere back up, such as restaurants, shops, when in theory it's going to be the busiest time of the year? So coming to you first, Denzel, what do you think about opening everything back up on the 2nd?
I've got mixed feelings. I really do. I'd like for things to be open again. I'd like for us to experience normality. And obviously December being the Christmas period, it would add to that festive feeling that we're used to. However, a month really locked down isn't really all that long. So I'm not really too sure if it will be enough to make a difference for them things to be reopened again. So from that angle, I'm not too sure. But my other view is that I'm kind of happy that we're in lockdown now, because then it does sort of seem more likely that we'll be able to experience a normal Christmas come December time. So yeah, I think I'm more for things opening up again. I'm just a little bit conscious as to things not happening again like it has before, basically.
Yeah, definitely. I think the last thing that we want is for everything to spike back up again and we end up in lockdown 3.0, because that kind of defeats the whole object. For those that don't know, I'm actually a retail manager myself. So my shop is obviously closed during this period, but I've been going in to sort of fulfill orders and stuff like that. I really want to open the store back up on the 2nd of December, but I want to open it for the right reasons, because of the fact that the cases have dropped, rather than because we're opening it because we have to. Because for me, that kind of means that the last month where we've all been locked down has actually been, what's it been for? It'll have been for nothing. So I really want it to open back up on the 2nd. That's something that I really want to happen, but I want it to happen for the right reasons.
I'd love for people to be open, so especially the self-employed and those that own small businesses, for their financial statuses and things like that, for them to be, potentially get a last check before Christmas or something like that coming. And
Yeah, I
also
think
work is something that's massively important for so many people, not just for the money, but it gets them up, it gets them out, it keeps them occupied. It's their pattern. I mean, so one person I spoke to not so long ago was my cousin, and he was saying about how much not working has affected his headspace mentally because he's just there doing nothing. So I would like things to be open for that purpose as well.
yeah, it's people's purpose at the end of the day. Most of us work sort of 5 days a week or whatever, and that is the reason that we get out of bed in the morning, is to get up, get ready, and go to work. So to suddenly not have that in your life is really hard. And like you say, I think for especially people who are self-employed, and suddenly the money that's coming in has completely stopped, you've then got the money worries and everything that go with it. It must be so difficult. And I think that's why it's so important that we do reach out and we help these people as much as possible. So no, I think that's really good points, Denzel. Martine and Mim, thoughts on opening back up on the 2nd?
I'm the same. I'm very mixed about it for the same reasons. I'd like for us to have some sense of opening back up, but not fully. More just so that, for example, people like my nan who are on their own, just so that we can sort of mix with one other family, so that people have got a choice, because it's obviously recognised that around Christmas time as well is people's mental health. You know, people suffer more, seasonal depression, stuff like that. So I'd hate to think of anyone on their own at Christmas. So I think for the right reasons, I would want us to open back up again, but just sort of one family mix.
Yeah, fair enough. Martine?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you've all been saying. I'm a bit mixed about it all. I think we've not been given enough information as to how it's going to happen, so that can be a bit confusing. And I want, like you say, these businesses to open again for the personal reasons, but I also don't want to have to go backwards and have another lockdown, like you say. So we need to make sure that we're doing everything the right way, and we're moving forwards and not backwards again.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just with regards to sort of opening everything back up and going back to sort of the tier system that we were in before, I think pretty much everyone would agree that the tier system that we had in place wasn't working, hence why we've ended up in another lockdown. And sort of, I think what worries me personally, what I get anxious about, is if we come out of this and we go back into that tier system, how are we possibly going to avoid going into another lockdown? And I would like personally for me to get some more information with regards to when we come out of this lockdown, what it's going to look like for certain places, because I know they've extended the furlough scheme up until March. So I would assume that that means they're going to have to keep some places closed in certain regions. But I don't know that. So I think just for sort of people's mental health and for them to be able to move forward, I think Mim said earlier, once we got a date, you feel more secure in yourself because you know you're aiming towards that date. I think if we had an answer as to what happens when we come out of lockdown, people would feel a lot more secure about it, and the anxiety would be lessened because of the fact that they know what they're going into. I always think when you don't know, that's the worst possible thing.
Yeah,
That can improve anxiety all day.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the stage that we're at the minute. Is yes, we all want to open up on the 2nd, but none of us have a clue what it looks like if we do. And I know for me personally, working in retail, that makes me feel anxious. So I can only imagine how the rest of the country feels about it.
yeah, it's very confusing, and I think because it's confusing, that's what's making everybody feel anxious about this 2nd of December. Instead of looking forward to it, I think there is a bit of anxiety because we don't know what's going to happen on the 2nd of December yet.
Great stuff. So to finish this week, we're all just going to give a quick tip as to how best cope with anxiety. If you are feeling anxious about the situation, about lockdown, about anything really, just a quick tip as to how best to cope. So coming to you first, Mim, your tip for this week for how best to cope.
I think my top tip really is just not to put too much pressure on yourself. It's a strange time, and expectations of people are quite confusing at the minute. You don't really know what is expected of you, so just don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just get done what you can, and there's always tomorrow.
Yeah, fantastic. And coming to you, Denzel.
I've got two things, if that's all right.
Absolutely fine. The more the better.
Number one is to try and create something, no matter what sort of field it's in, whether it's art or music or literature, just try and create something. And the second one was to communicate with those that make you feel the most comfortable.
Yeah, great stuff. 2 really good tips there. Martine, coming to you.
Yeah, mine was to make sure you can keep talking, and also exercise. I use exercise for my anxiety, so walking or running or whatever you like to do, just exercise.
Yeah, fantastic. I know with regards to exercise, that's one thing that really helps me. As you know, I'm quite a keen runner, so I do try to go out quite often. I've been out again today, and it really does help clear your head. That fresh air and stuff massively helps. So even if it is just going for a 20-minute walk around the block, it honestly does help. So just get out there and enjoy the fresh air. And my tip is just to try and sort of keep some kind of structure to your day. So make sure that you're getting up in the morning, you're still having breakfast, you're having your set meals and everything like that. And on an evening, try to make sure that you're switching off from sort of TV and phones and stuff like that, and at least an hour before you go to bed, because it will help you get a better night's sleep. And if you sleep better, you'll feel much better for it the next day. So yeah, that's our tips. So that pretty much concludes our mental health podcast for this week. Thank you very much to Denzel, Martine and Mim for joining me this week. It's been really insightful, and it's been really good to hear sort of your opinions about lockdown, and fingers crossed come the 2nd of December we'll be able to come out of it and we'll have a bit of a clearer understanding as to what that looks like over the next couple of weeks. So from me and everyone else, thank you very much for listening. Have a great week, and we will speak to you all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Wicked,
Bye.
wicked, wicked.